Okay, we welcome you to another episode of Learning Stories. This is a show where we profile a diverse set of learners from the 21st century. In each episode of this show, we interview a guest who has a story to share about how they acquired a unique set of skills and knowledge in a creative and innovative manner. In the process, we hope to uncover a new definition of learning or a new understanding of learning as conceptualized, imagined, and narrated by the guest on our show. Today's guest, Mr. Dhananjay Yellurkar, is someone I have known for a long time now. We actually met at a philosophy course in Mumbai, I think a good 7 years ago, 7 to 8 years ago. Mr. Dhananjay is someone I've always been inspired by. We struck up a conversation after one of those courses where he told me about his story. He works in the finance sector. He's currently the Chief Risk Officer at NIIF Infrastructure. I've written notes here. Mr. Dhananjay is the Chief Risk Officer at NIIF Infrastructure Finance Limited, and he's had an illustrious career um, in the risk sector, in the finance field, and he's going to tell us a little bit about that too today. But in addition to his career in that sector, he's also a very prolific marathon and long distance runner, and he also published a book about how he took up running in his mid 40s, and today he's run in I think 6 continents, and he's moving on to seven very soon. So there's a lot to unpack in this conversation today. But Dhananjay, just to get started, just to give the viewers a little bit of a background about you, where did you grow up, and what was Dhananjay like growing up? I know it's really back in the day, so let's get started there.
Yeah. Thank you, Abhishek, for asking me to join this conversation. I'm looking forward to it. Uh, I'll just take you back a little bit about my childhood. It's a little unique childhood because my father was in the government service in the forest department. So I grew up in small towns all across the country, mainly in the state of Maharashtra. And it was a transferable job. I have changed 6 schools. Uh, every 2 years or 3 years, I was changing schools. So my memories of summer vacations were just packing and unpacking. So uh, it was a it kind of was disorienting at that time to the fear of getting into a new school, making new friends, leaving behind old friends, and that time it was not a time of social media, so it was difficult to do that and settle in a new place. So my thoughts always were preoccupied into settling down at the new place rather than leaving behind the old place. But that was a difficult part. But the better part was, since I was a part of the forest department, so my life was a little bit like Jungle Book, I would say. Summer vacations meant uh, all the stranded baby animals who whose parents were killed or whatever, or abandoned. Those would transit from our house and before they reached their destination of a remand or any such kind of thing. So my my child so every we had like three deer, a bear cub, uh, many a monkey, and all those kind of stuff. Every summer holidays meant uh, having an animal, of course, a caged animal, a baby animal. But yeah, like taking care of that till they transited out was something which is unbelievable in today's time and age. Yeah, but yeah, I we have four siblings. I'm the youngest one, so it was a great, and it has had a very huge compound, and like and most of the government officers' houses were earlier the clubs of the British officers. So our office home was huge. It had wooden flooring and of those time, and very high ceiling, and it was in the interiors of the country. So it was very warm in the summer. So summer also meant that we would take out all the our sleeping beds and keep it in the compound and sleep under the stars. So
Wow.
yes, I'm not making this up, but this is to what is to happen then. So it was, yeah, very unique growing up. Uh, Also, I was not into very much into sports or any such thing earlier. So I was a very studious student, even in this environment of so much things happening. So because I wanted to always in a new place be known for my marks and my education, but it was little erratic because we would move back to a bigger city where the competition was different. We would move back to a smaller city where suddenly there were no students in the class except for a dozen or so. So, and the same teacher is to take different classes, different subjects. So it was a erratic kind of education because my parents couldn't afford keeping us in a boarding school or something like that because we were four children and in a government officer's salary that was a little difficult. So yeah, we moved along everywhere, and that is how it was. But I think in hindsight, it was wonderful.
It's so nice how you recounted that story, Dhananjay. Um, I think you have a deep connection to nature in that sense because you've probably grown up in environments that were filled with natural environments. And like, I'm curious about what were some of the subjects that you were interested in growing up, Dhananjay? And in addition to talking about Dhananjay's journey, we're also going to be talking about Dhananjay's wonderful book. I will be linking it in the show notes, so I highly recommend that you can get a copy of that book. You can buy it in hard copy or in the Kindle version. And I highly also recommend following Dhananjay on LinkedIn and other social platforms where he talks more about his journey related to this book. We'll get to the book in a bit, but Dhananjay, you've told me about what it was like growing up with four siblings, and I'm sure being the youngest one, you were also probably the most pampered and loved one. But at school, what were some of the subjects you were most interested in? Because I know you did a BE in electronics at Karnatak University, and then you went on to do an MBA from Northwestern University. So, how did you get to that point from your early experiences in middle and high school?
Right. Uh, Good you asked me this question because at that particular time, when I was in my 10th standard, was the time when you had to decide whether you had to take science or commerce or arts or humanities, etc. So since the background was with lot of animals and taking care of it and all, so it was moving in a direction that I would be some kind of a in a doctor space or a healer space, taking care of whatever injured baby animals was something I grew up with. So that was some space. So biology was something that I was keen on. I was good in all subjects, meaning as much as I could. So I liked maths also, but biology was a little favorite. So I thought I would be pursuing something in the medical field, something in the healing field. So yes, but as I told you, my education was little erratic. The quality of education was little erratic. So though I stood first in the school in my 12th standard, the junior high school, I missed my medical uh, uh, seat by 1 mark. So because of that, I joined a dental college in Mumbai. But I did that for one week only because once I went to the college, I realized that uh, I had a very protected childhood, so to speak, meaning I didn't had not seen so much of illness or blood. But that was a government dental college in Mumbai, Nair Hospital. So it was very difficult to see. It's jam packed, and I came from a very different kind of a background. So I that's the time I realized that this is something I just cannot will not be able to handle. Meaning, looking after some injured thing was one thing, but looking at patients and in the corridor, jam packed, and the smell of the hospital was something I had not experienced before. It always was in the mind that you should be this thing and should do that. But actually, when I went there, I knew that this was something that was unnerving me. So I did 1 year of BSc after that, and then moved to engineering degree. So from medical sciences, I moved to engineering because that was the only, I think, at that time, the career options for Indian students were either medical or CA or engineering. So I moved to engineering, and electronics was a new subject at that time. So I did that. Uh, so that's how I moved into engineering. Then after that, I was working for a couple of years with a electronics manufacturing firm in the quality control side. But soon I just was felt that I needed to do something which gave me a better perspective of the entire organization. An MBA was it. So I applied for it was Northeastern University in Boston. So I applied there, a couple of colleges, and I enrolled and I got my MBA there. And I worked there for a couple of years, 1 year or more, and then moved back to India and joined the financial institutions here. And that time, infrastructure was just about opening up. So my first thing was in the telecom sector, where they were doing mobile licensing at that time, and so it was the initial days of privatization in telecoms, and I worked there. So it was a very challenging and very interesting time. And from there, I've been working in the infrastructure and the risk space in the financing field. So it's now nearly over 30 years.
Wow. And you've
Yeah,
moved.
from being a healer, from trying to be a medical, now I'm looking at risk in infrastructure. So whatever you plan, your life takes you, whichever you keep taking decisions at that particular time, but it is wonderful
Wow.
wherever it has led me.
That's so amazing, Dhananjay, because I know that you're somebody that's very passionate about your job, and you've done this for a very long time. But for a young person that doesn't know too much about what is involved in the infrastructure and risk space, if you had to describe in simple words what the job is like and what someone that wants to pursue that job needs to do to get to that
Sure.
point, how would you explain your job on a day-to-day basis to them?
Yeah. That's a good way to maybe introduce, because it will be younger audience who would be looking at this space. Basically, infrastructure finance is all the infrastructure projects which the government cannot fund. Generally, the government is funding the roads, the airports, the power sector, all the power generation and transmission. But in some countries, there's a model called the public-private partnerships (PPP), where the concessions to develop a project like a road project between a city A and city B is developed by the private sector, and they construct the road and then collect the tolls for 25 years, and that's how they kind of earn their returns from whatever investment they have made. So suppose the investment is $100 million. I'm just giving an example for a road project. So it is generally financed as 30% of that is equity, which is coming from the developer, and 70% is from financial service providers like us, where so we are called project finance kind of a specialist, and we give a very long term loan, like we give 20 years loan. So the concession is 25 years, we give 20-year loan, and we control the cash flow, because we can't. in case of a default, we can't go and take over the road, right? That's a national asset. We can't do that. So we control the cash flows of the company, and so whenever somebody's car crosses the toll, the money that is collected goes to the bank account, which is controlled by us.
mm,
So we take the traffic risk, and that's how we, or the market risk, so to speak, and that's how we price the loan. And since we control the cash flows, we also are knowing what is happening with the project, etc. Because we are long term here, we are not giving a 2 or 3 year loan or something like that. And that's how we recover our money, because we structure the loan accordingly. We first estimate what the traffic would be, what will be the paying capacity of the people who are going to use the road project, etc. And that we make a financial model of how much debt can we provide to this project
mm,
based on the market kind of dynamics, the amount of structure, how much the cost of the project, how much time it will take for it to pay back the debt, etc. And that's how. So it's a very analytical role, a very number crunching role, also very sector driven understanding, deep understanding of how the economy is working, what would be the traffic from city A to city B, what is driving that, what are the industries coming up there, whether it's commercial traffic or it is personal people moving, are there any universities there, what is
mm,
driving the traffic, and are there any competitive roads coming up? Are there any competitive modes of transportation coming up? Is it flights are cheaper, or railway movement of goods is cheaper? So we have to do a lot of analysis of all these things. So a person joining such a role would not only have a finance background, but he would also need to be aware of how the economy is functioning, how the sector is, and what are the key uh, stakeholders in the sector, and what is happening, what are the key drivers in the sector. So at one point you need to be a sector expert, and you need to be also a financial expert. So that is what we look at, and the risk role is basically the checker role. The proposal is got by the business team, and they make the proposal, but risk looks at it very dispassionately and sees that all the risks that are there are adequately mitigated,
mm.
so that we do not take undue risk, because somebody, otherwise, if the business takes forward the proposal without the risk vetting it, a lot of biases may come in the form of your proposal, because you're meeting the borrower on a regular basis. You all the biases can slowly seep in. So we look at it, so there's always a maker and there's always a checker
Mm.
before a proposal goes to the committee, and the committee finally approves it. And then we monitor the project once the money is sanctioned and disbursed, because we have to monitor it over a long time. So we have to look at it, because, like I said, cash flows are a key way of monitoring it. Suppose there are some strikes happening, or some natural phenomena happening, and the road is closed.
Mhm.
It directly impacts the cash flows. So then, how do you kind of manage such situation? All those kind of things also. So there's a lot of legal nuances also
Mm.
this role, apart from the financing and the sector expertise. So it's a very challenging and very fun role, especially in a country like India, because now we are seeing a lot of renewable projects. So we finance a lot of solar and wind projects. We do a lot of airports. We do a lot of ports in India. We do airports. So
Mhm.
lot many things. And when you go to an airport like Mumbai airport and all, we realize that actually we are part of building the country by contributing in building such infrastructure projects. So
Yeah,
it's an interesting, challenging role.
that's amazing. I mean, the way you explained it, Dhananjay, it made me so excited about it. I'm like, that's I think there are so many challenges because you have to understand the financial side of it, and as you said, also be very mindful of the sector you're working in, because I assume it'll be different for a road
Yes,
project and an airport project, and
yes,
I think
yes,
you are doing a long-term investment. So in that case, you have to consider so many other variables that may affect the project's viability in the long run. So I,
exactly,
yeah,
absolutely.
so
And each sector is different. Like the power generation sector is very different from transportation. And power sector, the off-taker could be the government itself. It is not like here in the transportation sector, the off-taker is the paying public like us. Whereas in the power sector, the pay, it is basically the government utilities which would be buying the power and
mm,
then giving it, then sending it to you. So we have to understand what tariff it is, whether the tariff is sustainable, and the modules, what is the degradation in modules, whether they produce the same kind of energy as they were producing in the first year compared to what it is in the 15th year.
mm.
So it is a lot more complex.
No, that's very fascinating, Dhananjay. I think because you've done it for so long, you were able to in like 3 or 4 minutes explain such a large
Yeah,
endeavor. But I think for a young person that's really passionate about finance and infrastructure and risk, I think it's a wonderful career option. And for anyone interested in the same, again, reach out to
yeah,
Dhananjay on LinkedIn. He's been doing this for a really long time, and I know he's almost at the end of his career, but he has so much to give back in terms of experience and knowledge. So, and I'm not an expert in infrastructure and finance, so I will not be able to ask Dhananjay those specific questions about the industry. But another part of Dhananjay's life that I'd like to delve in. I'm just going to make sure I have my, sorry. So another part of Dhananjay's life I'd like to delve in is his family and his passion for running. These I think are equally important parts of an individual's life, their health and their loved ones. So Dhananjay, like a lot of us forget that career is just one part of our life, especially when we're younger. We don't realize this. We think we should be only focused on our career, dedicate everything to our career, and we don't give as much importance to building those emotional relationships, and also making sure we have the right habits to make sure our health um,
right.
is good in the long term. So how did you go about managing that when you started your career in such a demanding job and sector? So what was it like in your early years, and how did it change after in your mid 40s for you?
Right. Uh, when I first started it, like I said, it was a very challenging space because an entire job description was new, something which the country had not done. So it was very challenging, and as a young person, you do put in a lot more because you're learning at the same time and executing at the same time. So your learning curve is very, very steep.
Mm,
That's because it's not a very something that is very normal that you're just stepping into a role. So the learning curve is very steep, and yes, and you're settling down in life, and your marriage, and you are having young children. So it is a space which is uh, like difficult to not difficult, but you have to manage because that's the time when you start giving lesser focus on yourself and more focus on building newer relationship, whether it is of a spouse or whether it is of a parent, and you're making a new home also at that particular time, and your career also is kind of zooming up. So it's the time when you give the least priority to yourself and your health, and it's not just physical health, but also I think emotional and mental health also, because we are living in times where every company is obsessed with quarter to quarter results and growth, and every quarter there has to be, because they are listed or they plan to get listed or whatever it is. So the clock is always ticking, that you have to achieve this target. So it's like continuously you are on a treadmill, which is like the incline is getting steeper and steeper. So you have to so that consumes a lot of your time and mental space and energy also. So 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 the in bargain it happens that you kind of don't focus too much on your well-being.
Mhm.
And it does happen also that, because you are working so hard, or what you are working so much, so weekends generally are not meant for physical activity, but being on a little guilt trip and then taking out the children to the mall, or eating out, or trying to spend as much time as possible with them in some kind of a atmosphere or a scenario where they are more comfortable.
Mm.
Because they are growing children, they are not yet established their own, whether it is a physical sport or something like that. They are still in that, not that stage where they can be independent and doing something on their own. So you end up kind of not taking good care of yourself. And also the work pressure also is high. So that's one lesson I learned, especially as a young breadwinner and being the only earning member of a young family, that how important it is to take care of your health. Because I did have a heart attack at work when I was 46, the mid 40s, and I didn't realize it that I had a heart attack. In fact, it was not that, the symptoms were very different. It was severe body ache and nausea kind of a thing. Not that, and it was good that I got diagnosed in time, thankfully, by my own initiative, I would say. And yeah, before I realized, I had a bypass surgery. I had 5 blocks. So yeah, so I had an open heart surgery, and it has been a very big change from them that time, because when you're not ready for a surgery, you're not ready for so much kind of a trauma happening in your life. It does take a long time to you to bounce back,
Mhm.
because you're not ready for, if you're ready for a surgery, you're mentally prepared of what to do, how to go about. But here you are going to work one day, and 2 days later you are getting operated and you don't even come back home. You're coming back after the surgery. So and as like I said, like a sole breadwinner, it is a very difficult situation to be in, because at that time, in that situation where you are, you cannot move properly, you cannot walk properly, you're just staring at the ceiling, lying on the bed with your rib cage kind of getting healed. It's not a, it's a very traumatic kind of a time, and you start losing hope that you can be a productive member again. You'll be able to provide, because as a you are responsible not only for yourself but for your entire family's well-being. And when your children are very young, like my son was just 6 years old, and so daughter was around just about becoming a teenager. So it is a difficult time. And yeah, and there was no safety net for me. I had to kind of, like I said, we are a nuclear family, and we have to take care of. I had to then just do everything possible. So there were a lot of demons in my mind at that time. Lot of them, that I will not be able to go back to work. I won't be productive again. My life will be, because that's the typical picture you have in your mind as a person. Because when I was growing up, a heart disease meant it happened to maybe people after retirement,
Mm.
and their kind of lifestyle was already slowing down a bit. So So it further accelerated and slowed down. Or people, if they in their mid 40s, if they had it, they didn't survive it.
Hmm.
So there were no role models for me to, or there were no guideposts how to navigate from this situation, because the number of heart disease or the heart attacks is mind-boggling number in this country,
Hmm.
and especially it is increasing more rapidly, and it is not just age-wise, also it is coming down because, like I said, the stress levels at work are very high, the country is growing very fast, and the expectations are everywhere.
Hmm.
So, so not only is earlier people had it in 60s, now 50s, now in 40s, 30s. So it is a situation where we need to take care, understand the implications, and have some kind of a roadmap to get back out of this thing.
Okay.
So yeah, so that's when I took up running
Okay.
as a means, long distance running, as a means to just. It all started with basically feeling good about myself.
Hmm.
That was the basic, very very basic objective, that I wanted to be as fit as anybody my age, and I wanted to return back to my job and just be the breadwinner again.
Hmm.
So the so I just needed something to make me feel good about myself.
Got it.
So so I just had joined a rehab program at the hospital,
Okay.
and they were the medical partners for the Mumbai Marathon.
Yes, and
So
and you mentioned that in your in the first chapter of your book as well, that within 6 to 8 months you got back into
yeah, yeah.
completing a marathon after your operation, right, Dhananjay?
So I got operated in sometime in the summer,
Okay.
month of May, and the marathon was in January the following.
Wow.
So, but the doctor, medical fraternity, nobody would allow something like that, to have a heart patient, open heart surgery patient with 5 blocks, who are just kind of recovering, to suddenly say that he wants to run a marathon.
Hmm.
They would say it's not possible. Even I think it's. I mean, I thought it was not possible. But I like they say, like if you are determined, you have a plan, and if you set your priorities, no, then anything is possible.
Hmm.
So rehab was a space that, when I first was wheeled into that uh, kind of center, that's when the first time I felt good about myself after the surgery, because I saw other patients exercising, uh, being on the treadmill, etc. And then I said, okay, nothing is lost. If they can do it, I think that there is hope here.
Hmm.
So, and since the hospital, there were a lot of advertisements in the hospital about the marathon, I said, let me attempt a half marathon. The
Hmm.
doctor said it is not possible. You have to first demonstrate that you can run 30 minutes on the treadmill in the rehab, and
Hmm.
then we will may think about allowing you to dare something like. So I started with 2 minutes of run on the treadmill, with all the wires coming out, because they are monitoring your performance of the heart, your lungs, etc., your heartbeat, wirelessly monitoring it. But it feels good because you're in a controlled atmosphere.
Hmm.
Because first time when you're stepping on the treadmill after such a big surgery, you are unsure. So when there are doctors monitoring you, you keep looking at them, whether you're doing well, whether any parameter is not well, or whether it's out of whack. So yeah, so it started with 2 minutes. I was sweating by then, because I was not an athlete ever. Like I said before, I was never into any sports or any such thing.
Okay.
So this was a new thing for me. But I, from 2 minutes, it became 4 minutes, 8 minutes, 10 minutes, and by the end of 2 weeks, I told you, like I was determined to do it. I could do the 30 minutes at a very slow pace, but I did it. So then the doctor said, okay, I think maybe we can look at something like this. So you joined a proper professional running group outside,
Hmm.
and they suggested one group which had a couple of doctors also running.
Okay.
So they said you train with them and you report to us on a weekly basis. And if there is anything wrong, please stop it immediately. And they gave a do's and don'ts. Like if your heart rate crosses, I run with a heart rate monitor. So if your heart rate crosses 145, just slow down or start walking,
Hmm.
and do not overexert yourself.
Hmm.
Just because some other runner is running faster than you, don't try to overtake you. Maintain your pace, and all those kind of advices: what medicines to take, what medicines not to take, what diet to follow, etc.
Hmm.
So yes, I started running outside with this group, and slowly it started with a 4K, then it increased gradually, and it started in September, my training outside,
Hmm.
and the marathon was in January, half marathon I enrolled into. Yeah, so by December, from 4 kilometers, I had ramped up. I used to run 3 times a week.
Okay.
Uh, Sundays was generally the long run. Otherwise, it was a shorter run on weekdays. And they gradually ramped it up to, I did around a 16 to 18K one of the Sundays in November and December.
Wow.
So
Wow.
by then, so I knew that I was well prepared by then. And the doctors also had told that 1 week prior to the marathon, I have to get a stress echo test done. And
Okay.
only once I clear that they will allow me to participate in the run. So
Okay.
I had to do so I had to do that. But by then, my body is so amazing that the more you kind of push it, the more it starts helping you
Hmm.
in the manner of bouncing back or whatever you have to just be consistent. Yes, I know consistent is boring, uh, and but just to get up every day in the morning at 5 o'clock and do that and I was not doing that before,
Hmm.
but since I was determined to get this, prove it to myself, I could do it consistently. But the bigger support was from my family, because especially from my wife and the extended family, because here is a patient who has just come back from hospital and now he wants to run outside and it's dark outside when he steps out. We don't know where he's running, what would happen, what if he falls down on his chest again, he's just recovering. And it's a lot of fears, right? Because he's just so, so I think it helped a lot that my wife gave me a lot of support and strength,
Wow.
entire family, my children and all. Otherwise, I would have not been able to start on this journey
Hmm.
at all. Because everybody wants their freedom, right, to do
Correct.
something and all. But when you are in a role where you are the only breadwinner who is just coming bouncing back, it is very important for the family to also say, okay, he can do it, let him do it. And because every time I step out, it was very difficult because I myself am very scared of what is happening, and suddenly there are no doctors monitoring you.
Hmm.
It's a phase where it's a sport where you don't know much. And of course, and it's like in Mumbai city, running on roads also is not very easy.
Yeah.
And it's end of monsoon, and then it's very hot in October. And so the weather is also not something that is helping you
Correct.
to do that. It's not like the spring or autumn or something in the Western hemisphere where
Hmm.
you can still train and the weather is okay. You're just either it's a monsoon or it's very warm
Hmm.
temperature. But the bigger battle was the internal battle to conquering the demons in my head so that I can do it. Yeah, so at the race day, it was, but the good part was I was prepared.
Hmm.
So the confidence level that I had while I took the first step in the race was quite high.
Okay.
Because I'd done the 18K, I knew that I could just do another 3 kilometers more than that, and I would finish the marathon. Be- be- so being well trained is an extremely important factor,
Got it.
uh, because there are a lot of people who show up at the race by just running 1 week prior to the marathon and say they are fit and they'll be able to do such a thing,
Hmm.
because they hear so much about running and they participating, and they are younger, they feel that if physically they can just, okay, they can just walk a little bit or in the last stage do it. But when I finished the race, the medical tent was filled full with younger people
Yeah.
getting with a sprain or getting themselves treated,
Yeah.
whereas a guy who has just come had a surgery was had a spring in his step at the finish line. So that is how the body is. So it's so amazing that it's just mind over body. I could just control all the fears in my mind, and with the support of the family, and
Yeah.
it was like you can do anything.
Wow.
So that's and once the marathon ended, the group disbanded actually because they
Oh,
train only for Mumbai Marathon from September to January.
yeah.
By then, I was addicted
To running.
to running because, like I said, it made me feel very good about myself.
Got it.
So when I came back from a run, my energy levels were very high. My day at work was very good. The kind of the the feeling, the vibe inside you is so positive when
Yeah.
you come back that even the family started realizing, oh, he's happy. Let him be happy when he comes back from the run. That is
That's
better.
yeah. I mean, that's just amazing, Dhananjay, because I think that transformation, from going to having that diagnosis to doing the surgery and then completing that half marathon 6 or 7 months later, I think it's kudos to you for taking on that challenge and doing that. But what you mentioned about the body being so supportive, and I know in a lot of your posts you mentioned that consistency is the key. It's something you need to do day by day, and then you will see results over time, right? But it's also a chance for your body to adapt to this additional challenge, because in a lot of ways our body tries very hard to not mess up, because we were teaching our grade 5 students about the human body, and we were
Right.
learning about the different systems. And we have one possible malfunction in our whole life, and we think our body is not working well, right? But in so many ways, all the other systems try their best to work so well for you. And it's so important with food, exercise, and sleep to make sure we regularly take care of our body in that sense. And I think what you did after, and I'm sure, like uh, like one thing I'd also like you to comment on, because in your book, in the first chapter, Dhananjay, you mentioned that uh, the diagnosis related to the heart condition was related to genetic factors, right? And it was related to stress. So can running actually overcome some of these genetic factors that all of us have, and that's something we don't really have a say on? And I know there is research that says that leading a healthy lifestyle can overcome even certain genetic conditions, or at least reduce the chances of it, if not completely mitigate it in terms of risk. And
Yeah.
I'd like you to comment on that, Dhananjay, but also, what has running taught you about life? What has running taught you about how you can be a better human being? And maybe tell us a little bit about the other races you started running after that first one. So maybe question one and then question two then.
Yeah, thank you for asking the first question. In fact, I should have touched upon it because that's a key thing also. Because I need to give a little bit background about myself. Like my my father had a heart condition when he was in his 50s. So at the back of the mind, I knew that I had to be a little careful about this disease. So uh, I had turned vegetarian uh, since my marriage. When I was a student in Northeastern, became a vegetarian, I was to smoke earlier, so I gave up that time also when I was in the US. Uh, and I used to go for morning walks, etc. before the surgery also. So mentally, I thought I was doing everything possible to avert this kind of a genetic, or at least delay it
Got it.
a little bit,
Got it.
because the back of the mind, you know that something could come up here,
Mm,
and this is a family history here. So I thought I'd done everything possible. I'm a social drinker. I very rarely I have a little bit of wine when there is a pass. So there were no symptoms or something to show that there was something lurking inside.
mm,
And also, basically, I didn't used to get my physical done immediately, something like on a regular basis, and I should have done that.
mm,
But my blood pressure was also, when I got the heart attack, also it was not way out of parameters.
mm.
Cholesterol levels are little higher, but not alarmingly higher.
Got it.
So so when my angiography was done
Mhm,
before the surgery, that's when the doctor had said that the like how you said, the body itself is such an amazing machine, that I had five big blocks, heavy blocks in the arteries, but the body was preserving itself because there was a web of collateral arteries around the block.
mm,
So it was like a web of small vessels that have come in. So when I had the heart attack, these little bit capillaries kind of protected the heart muscle
mm,
from damage, severe damage.
mm,
Otherwise, the damage would have been more severe. So, this is how the body protects you if you are leading a healthier lifestyle. It is in a self preservation mode if you don't abuse your body and if you are taking care of whatever little. But yes, genetics did play a role here, and but I would say lifestyle also played a role, because I was not into any sports or any physical activity, and
mm.
like I told, the weekends were meant in pleasing the family
Yeah.
and going out or something. So the physical activity was not there as to what level I should be doing. Just taking a morning walk, leisurely walk, is not really something that I can call a physical activity for a young person. So yeah, work stress is the third factor. Lifestyle, hereditary, and I think work stress is a deadly combination to
Got
get
it.
a heart disease. But if you are in control, the body
Got it.
does help you a lot. In fact, my heart muscle was saved to a large extent by the lifestyle that I followed.
Wow, that's amazing, and that's I think that's so inspirational for young people and even anyone in their mid 40s and mid 50s listening to this podcast. I think what your journey shows, Dhananjay, is that even if you don't do it, if you can start off with 2 minutes, even walking for 2 minutes, then go from there and make it 4 minutes, then go from there and make it 5 minutes. I think we underestimate what we can do in the long run and
Right.
overestimate what we can do in the short run. We feel like we have to do everything in one day, but if
Yeah.
we push it out over like 5 months or 6 months, maybe we can do something really magical, right? So I know you took up the first race when you were 46, right, Dhananjay? So how I mean, how did you take on running? Because I think in a lot of ways you took up running like semi professionally and you've been running consistently since then. So what were some of the big races that you ran, Dhananjay? And you probably met a lot of other runners. What did they teach you about running as well, Dhananjay?
Yeah. So, after the Mumbai marathon, half marathon, I wanted to continue with running. So I thought, let me run an international marathon, because Mumbai marathon was a year later.
Okay.
So I wanted to, so I thought, let me run throughout, because if I have a target marathon, I'll run throughout the year and kind of train for it. The last 20 weeks, of course, it would ramp up much more, but I would continue running to keep myself fit. And at the end of the race, make a holiday out of it.
Mm,
So that was my just a basic goal. Actually, it was not a very many. I thought this would a good way of tying in both family time and my training time and giving me a direction in life.
correct.
So since I was studying in US, I knew about the Boston Marathon and the New York City Marathon, etc. Uh, so I looked up. I just checked on the net, and the New York City Marathon was open for lottery basis.
Okay.
So I quickly filled up the form. I thought I was quite naive then, actually. I filled up the form and I thought, like Mumbai Marathon, at the end of the form, there'll be a tick whether it's for the full marathon or the half marathon.
Okay.
But when I reached the end of the form, I realized it's only for the full marathon. The half
Oh.
marathon is 6 months later,
Oh wow.
different day altogether.
Okay.
But I said it's a lottery. Anyway, I filled up the form. Let me pay the money by credit card and just let's see what happens.
Okay.
And yes, a couple of weeks later, I was one of the lucky guys to win the lottery, and I was in. And suddenly, from half marathon, I had to start thinking of the full marathon of 42 kilometers.
Wow.
And the running group had disbanded. And that time, not many people in Mumbai were running. Now, not many people are running,
Yeah.
and that's a good thing that's happened. But that time there were not many. I'm talking about 2010, 12
Got it.
years ago.
Got it.
But yes, I got the thing. So I said, okay. Now then, I sat with my coach of that half marathon team, and he prepared a 20-week training plan
Okay.
for me. And then he said, how do I ramp up and all those things. But I had to do it. It was a self-assisted kind of a training because there was nobody to guide me, etc. And it was also very, very challenging because mentally to go from 21 to 42 is a huge leap of faith,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that is around just 1.5 years after your surgery. So my first few days was only spent on Google typing out full marathon, cardiac patient, and there was nobody who had done that.
Oh wow.
So I was like, there was nobody and the doctor said you can do it, but again you'll have to do with all these do's and don'ts,
Parameters.
and they are right to do such kind of thing.
Correct.
So I at one time I was very very excited that I had got this opportunity. The other side I was very uh, it required a lot of courage
Got it.
because to be the first person like that to at least there were no history there even on there however much I searched, I could not find any article which said that somebody had run a full marathon at that time,
Got it.
their cardiac surgery, open heart surgery.
Got it.
So yes, how do I train my mind? How do I train myself? How do I tell my family that it is going to be okay for a non-athlete to do a full marathon within a year and a half after the surgery was something I had to train my mind. Actually, again, the demons in my mind, I had to tame them to say that it is possible, I'll do it. And like I said, Mumbai Mother is not easiest to run, and when got this thing, I think the lottery, it was already March, April.
Okay.
So it was the peak of summer when I had to start running, and I tried to run in the gym in a AC atmosphere, but it was not fun.
Hmm.
So because I got used to running in the outdoors, so yeah, during the peak summer of May and June, I started running outside. It was like a huge challenge, self-assisted, without I had to carry my. So when I see my New York City pictures, I look like uh, a different person because I was like overloaded with water and every kind of thing. I'll carrying it on my body and running. It was something at a different stage in life altogether. And I used to carry my medicines. I used to carry my doctor's details. I used to carry my family details, everything on my body. So in case something happened to me, uh, how would somebody reach out to me? Because I I didn't carry my mobile while running
Okay.
because I would sweat a lot and it would get spoiled, and the battery anyway would be wearing off. And in the night also, it was not safe because if you carry a lot of money or the mobile with you. But yes, I carried the other stuff with me. So that was a challenging thing. Then it came to monsoon, and 2010 monsoon in Mumbai was uh, that decade. It was the highest monsoon.
Oh wow. Okay.
So there were a lot of flooding in Mumbai,
Yeah.
and I had to ramp up my training. So I remember my first 22K when I attempted it, because I had done 21 in the half marathon and I had to cross that figure, and that happened to be the rainiest Sunday.
Wow.
But I've described it in my book and
Okay.
how I did it.
So you were
Uh,
adamant on doing it outside, right, Dhananjay? You didn't want to go to the gym at that point.
yeah, I knew that. And the thing was, I didn't have many free weeks in training because I was working on some projects in Africa that time.
Got it.
So my work involved a lot of travel to Tanzania and Botswana, etc. So it involved a lot of flying time and travel time, and it was not very safe. I didn't know the environment there to do training outside.
Got it.
I couldn't do a 22 kilometers in Tanzania.
Got it.
I didn't know the routes. I didn't know anything there.
Got it.
So I had to factor in all of this. So I couldn't waste a lot of weekends when my peak runs were happening. So whether it was raining or whether it was very hot, I had to do it in Mumbai.
Got it.
So that's made it like that. But it was good. By the time November came in and we flew into Boston, my family is there, my brother's family is there. So it felt good to get back to the city where I spent one of the best times. And yeah, the marathon was something which is always memorable. The first full marathon, and to add more pressure to my marathon, a lot of my relatives from US had come to see me run the marathon.
Oh
So
wow.
not only was I internally prepared, but I had to also be make sure that I finish it within the time. But yes, it's a big, big, big hurdle to cross the 21 to 42.
Wow.
And but I kind of just had my training plan with me. Whenever I slowed down, I was to keep reminding myself that yeah, I've done 36 kilometers, I've done this thing. So please look at it and continue. So so that was my way of motivating myself.
That's yeah,
Yeah,
that's
so
amazing, Dhananjay. I think it's so. I mean, I don't want to. I know there's so much more that's in the book for anyone listening to this talk. If you want to know more about how Dhananjay has actually run a marathon in 6 continents across the world, there's just one more that he hopes to do very soon, and I think you're going to see a lot more of Dhananjay talking about his writing. And I recommend following him on LinkedIn because he does post a lot of articles. There's recently an article on the Ageist magazine talking about Dhananjay's journey. So, if you do want to understand more about running, but also his professional career, please follow him on LinkedIn. And the best thing I'd recommend you to do right now is as soon as you listen to this talk, please go and purchase a hard copy or e copy of Fuel for My Journey, which is, am I saying that right, Dhananjay? It's Fuel.
fuel
Fuel
for my journey.
which is Dhananjay's wonderful book. I'm going to get my hard copy and e-copy soon as well. And because I had the pleasure of knowing Dhananjay in person, I knew this was going to be an amazing book. I personally took up running more recently, Dhananjay, and I'm not as prolific as you, but I hope to train for a marathon someday. And I think just listening to you inspires me to, take this step forward. And I hope your South American marathon happens soon. I think that's the last continent, right, Dhananjay?
Yes, I'll touch upon the other races very quickly.
Sure.
Uh,
And just to, because I want to be respectful of your time, Dhananjay, I don't want to be. Can we do 5 minutes more, Dhananjay, than the?
Sure, because I needed to give a not just the first marathon, but other marathons. So
Sure.
after that, I've done the Europe. I did marathons. I did it in Berlin, and I did in Paris, where the entire family was there to cheer me because it was during their summer vacations.
And
So, like I
were
said, I
these
was
in? Sorry, were these in 1 year breakdown? So one marathon every year, right, Dhananjay?
kind of initially I did one marathon every year.
Okay.
Then I did the Mumbai marathons also, the full marathon. And I wanted to also highlight one thing that in 2014, 4.5 years after my surgery, I was also honored to being the pacer for the 6 hour bus.
Wow.
So at one time, so it was unbelievable that a heart patient is guiding able bodied patients to complete a marathon within a specific time. So that was an unbelievable experience for me to be a pacer uh, from somebody who could not take two steps uh, after the surgery to now guiding able people, younger people, people half my age to finish the marathon was something unbelievable.
Wow.
And after that I've done a marathon. uh, from the city marathons I moved to a more difficult marathon because I wanted to see how much my body was able to help me further. I wanted to be in zones where I could push it to the limit and see how much it could help me grow further. And it is an incremental journey because it is I'm giving a 12-year horizon
Hmm.
in the book. And it's not just a 6 months post surgery I did my half and the book ends. It is giving a person a 12-year horizon of how beautiful life has turned up after a health handicap. And it's one step at a time. It's in always incremental. And anything of value in life, anything which is meaningful in life, takes time, it takes consistency, it takes everyday ritual. Every day for 12 years, when I wake up in the morning and go for my run, there's nobody outside to cheer me for every run, nobody outside there to garland me with a medal. It's only sometime, but to get that kind of consistency to do it irrespective of anything, even you may have work, so you kind of prioritize your life. You don't go out on some occasions. You put a priority at work also. You won't work beyond this time limit.
Got it.
You will. So you have to, if you start respecting your priorities, the people around you start respecting your
Got it.
priorities, and that's how you step up. Then I did a marathon in a game reserve in Africa, South Africa, called the Big Five Marathon. That
Wow.
was my first trail marathon in a game reserve.
Wow.
Yeah. Then I saved. Then there was a little bit of gap because then I had to save some money for my bigger marathon, which I did in Antarctica.
Okay.
So this was the Antarctica Ice Marathon in 2018,
Wow.
where you fly into from the Chilean side, the bottommost part of Chile, Punta Arenas. You take a logistic flight which lands on a glacier, which is this is a race which is closest to the South Pole, and there's a camp there, and yes, you do a full marathon there.
Wow.
So I did even that, and
And that
I
is
want.
the display of your book is from that marathon, right, Dhananjay?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. I would have got the book with me, but it's in the other room.
I think I have
Yeah,
like a digital copy of it. I can actually show them. No,
yeah.
no, keep going, Dhananjay.
So basically, I met some wonderful people there from all over the world, uh, and we became. This journey is not my journey. Also, there were a lot of people, lot of kindness I encountered there because I was not keeping well at the time of the marathon, and how other people whom I had not even known. That's the thing. The good part about sports. That doesn't matter your race, your color, your creed, your which country you are, which religion you are from, because I was struggling there, because my blood pressure was increasing. I was not keep my energy levels so low, etc. But there were people there who gave up their timing so that they could help me complete the race.
Hmm.
So it's a fantastic meaning the universe, if it wants to help you in whatever way it does help you in so many different ways that you will be surprised. And in the bottommost remotest part of the world, I encountered such kind of kindness from people whom even I had not barely met, is something is thanks to running. It has opened up so many different things in my life. And after that, I have done my Australia Gold Coast Marathon, and then I was to do my final marathon in South America. Uh, but due to COVID and etc., it was just at that time. So I'll be doing this year the South American marathon. That's also very challenging. I plan to run in the volcano marathon in Atacama Desert.
Wow.
Uh, so that's the driest place. Yes. So I'm all eager to do something very different for my seventh and by that I'll become one of the rarest person to have run full marathon in all seven continents post heart surgery.
Wow. And you have documented this journey in detail in the book, right, Dhananjay?
Yes,
Yep, that's amazing, Dhananjay. I want to talk to you in so much detail about each of your races and how you trained for it. But to conclude the interview, Dhananjay, like, can you, for someone that really, because I think running teaches you a lot about life, the fact that you wake up every day and you practice it, and sometimes you need to slow down. You don't always have to be very fast. Similarly in life, when you face some challenges, it is okay to slow down. It's okay to take some rest, and then when you are most productive, you can go a little faster. And then, so what does running teach you about life, Dhananjay? Because you have run for so long. What do you think it teaches you about being human?
yeah. So uh, I I think running has been been a lot of internal journey to me also, w- rather than external. Of course, it's going to exotic places and running, but it's far more an internal journey. And because it's not always the same, you may train a lot, but still you'll have some kind of issues with when I had at the time of Antarctica or something. So how do you take, even after training, certain setbacks in your life?
Hmm.
How do you uh, how do you understand the meaning of impermanence of a moment in life? You may dream about completing something or something like that, but when you realize that everything is so impermanent, even that moment will go away. So you're not living for a finish line, but you're focusing more on the journey, more on the people there, more on your experiences. And I think in the nutshell, you're focusing on becoming a better version of yourself on a regular basis. Every day you are running is teaching me to become a better version of myself, not only physically, but even mentally, emotionally. I think that translates into your relationships at home, with your friends, at work, everywhere, just becoming better every day, one step at a time.
That's amazing. And that's a wonderful note to, end this interview. But again, to the viewers, I will be linking a link to purchase the book, the e-copy or the hard copy. And I'll also be linking Dhananjay's LinkedIn profile, if that's okay, Dhananjay. Can I
Please
and
do that. Please
so
go.
you can follow Dhananjay on LinkedIn and see more updates about his journey and his preparation for the upcoming marathon. And again, the running is just one side of his life. Um, he's doing wonderful in the infrastructure, risk, and finance space, and he's got a lot of insights in that sector that you can also learn from. And it's not we can't possibly cover the depth and breadth of his wonderful life in 1 hour, but the book is a good shot in that direction. So for the listeners tuning in, thank you for tuning in. I really hope you continue this conversation with Dhananjay, with the book and his LinkedIn profile. And until next time, stay tuned for more such stories, and keep learning.
Thank you, Abhishek. Thank you for this conversation.